welcome back to Wheels of Interest. I hope you're enjoying our YouTube channel. I've got quite a few videos up now that I've done since end of January, early February. I'm getting a few subscribers and such like, but it's ticking along. But I'm hoping that whoever's subscribed and is watching the videos are getting something, or is getting something from the videos that we're doing, either entertainment or a bit of information, a bit of education perhaps. Today we've got some chores to do in the way of cutting grass, and I've got quite a lot of grass, 4 acres in fact, and the problem is we're mid-spring now. We've had such a wet winter that we haven't been able to get onto the grass to chop it down or cut it down and keep it topped. I'm not growing any of it for hay. What I am doing is I've got a couple of horses, but even the horses are really too much for the grass because the fields are so wet. They tend to churn it up quite badly. So what I'm trying to do is keep the grass to a minimum, but we have to be careful we don't churn it up too much, either with sort of livestock or equipment. What I normally use to top the paddocks is a much bigger tractor and a rotary topper. But what I'm proposing to do is to use this beautiful little tractor here called the Allis Chalmers Model B. And I've had this tractor about February 2023, something like that. Bought it from a lovely old chap down in Essex, deepest, darkest Essex, not far from Braintree. And the good thing about this one is it's got a mower on it. I'll take you around it when I've got the thing running, because that's the problem. I want to use it, but it doesn't run properly. It ran okay last year. We gave it an engine service, changed the oil, flushed out the radiator and the engine block, put some new antifreeze coolant in, put new filter on, but we didn't do much else. When I bought it, it didn't have a spark magneto points, but I got that working. We got fuel through that appeared to run clean and fresh, and it ran okay. We used it a couple of times just to do a little bit of work in the field, but then after 20 minutes or so it would die off and stop, which suggests fuel starvation. So that's one thing which we knew about. I came to get it out of the shed the other day and tried to get it to run. Got it started, but it would only run on one cylinder, which is amazing. Trying to hand crank a 4-cylinder tractor and getting it to run on one cylinder is quite an achievement, to be fair. So when I went through the plugs, yes, definitely 3 plugs were one plug was sparking and 3 plugs were dead. I had a spark to the plugs because I could see that on the ignition lead from the magneto. But when I took the plugs out, they sparked everywhere except across the electrode where you need it to spark. So clearly under compression, they just weren't doing anything at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what I did with the spark plugs and the magneto. We also had the fuel starvation issue where there's dirt in the fuel tank which has got through to the carburetor. I didn't film that part. I actually have already done the carburetor and stripped that down, blown all the passages out, got it all clean, made sure everything's clear and running free, put that back on. So that's waiting to be tested. But without further ado, let's have a go at the magneto and the spark plugs. Right, so I've got the final screw out of the magneto cover and taken out the final lead. Okay, so I've decided to change these ignition leads because they are quite manky. The ends are good, they're brass, they're not broken or split or anything, and they're not soldered to the lead either, so I can reuse those. The others I've already taken off, as you can see here. I've taken the end off, but the other end is just a bare cut end which slots into the hole in the corresponding hole in the magneto cover for the correct cylinder. But you can see here this is one of them, and it basically is split, and that's just going to cause a short. So along with new plugs I'm going to put new leads in. So these leads are held in with these little screws which have got a very pointy end on them. They're quite long and they screw into the distributor cap and the magneto cap, and they pick up the end of the ignition lead. So you can see a hole there where the old one has been pierced by the screw, and that just basically screws into the lead and picks up the ignition wire inside, and that's what sends the electricity through the wire and then off up to the plug. Now I've already made up new leads ready to go in, and I've made a bit of a schoolboy error. The old adage of measure twice, cut once did not figure in my head at this particular point when I measured these up. And I measured, because I don't keep any ignition coil or any ignition wire on a coil or anything on a roll, I just buy it as I need it. And I didn't buy enough basically. So I measured it out to be about a metre or a yard of wire, and I actually probably need a metre and a third or something like that. So the trouble is, it's, you know, £3 or £4 a metre and sort of like £10 to send it. So until I need new lead for something else, I'm not going to order any more. So I've reused one of the old leads, or I'm going to reuse one of the old leads, and that's this one here. Okay, number 4. So those are for the bin, old, and they're sort of like a PVC. Well, I don't know if they're PVC, but they're certainly plastic covered. The tractor is 1948, so I doubt that these are original. They possibly have been changed in some point of time of its life, being it's over 70 years old. But yeah, they're going to go in the bin. And these are the new leads that I've made. Okay, so I've got braided ignition lead, and I've put on a new end as well. Okay, and I've soldered that in too, so it can't come off. All right. Now they're different lengths, of course, because the plugs, the magneto is at one end of the engine, and the plugs sort of like spread out across the side of the engine, so you've got 2 different length leads. And that was my downfall, because I didn't measure enough. You look at the end of the magneto. This is a Lucas magneto, so it's an English Lucas magneto. Later tractors were built in England, and it's quite likely that this is the original magneto for the tractor. American tractors and early ones that were imported and built here in kit form would have been Fairbanks Morse probably, but I'm not too up on what was fitted when. But this is a Lucas magneto, and this particular magneto, this port here, this is number 1 firing cylinder. Okay, so that is the number 1 plug lead space on that side there. So it's at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on a clock. Okay, next we have number 2, number 4, and number 3. Allis Chalmers are a bit unusual because their firing orders on the Allis B was 1, 2, 4, 3, which defied convention, as most tractors are 1, 4, 3, 2, something like that. So if you're ever timing one of these up, don't forget that the firing order, first of all, is number 1, 2, 4, and 3. And on this cap, this is number 1. Okay. So I'm just going to, the leads are laid out in order. So this is 1, 2, 4, and 3. Okay, so I'm reusing number 4, and literally I'm just going to add them back in and screw them in together. So inside we've got the screw hole, and we'll screw it in. And screw it right down till it actually gets to the bottom, and you can't turn it any further. But don't over tighten it, because they're only tiny screws, and you only need to pierce the cable. You're not trying to torque it up to any particular specific tightness. Just finger tight or hand tight with the screwdriver is good enough. There we go. So just looking inside the magneto, this spring here, this is the high tension pickup from the coil of the magneto. It goes down inside and does a 90-degree turn and comes out of this little carbon brush here, which contacts onto the middle of the rotor arm, and the rotor arm is spinning in, as we look at it from the back, anti-clockwise. So this is number 1, number 2, number 4, and number 3. The plugs that came out were Champion L87Y. The company that I get spark plugs from did not have these in stock, so I went with the next best thing, which are AC Delco, which are 43 FS Foxtrot Sierra. Period correct for the tractor. AC, Delco or Champion, possibly others like Lodge maybe, but AC, Delco and Champion were around in those times, 1948, late 40s, early 50s, as opposed to something like NGK or something like that. An English tractor from that period would not have had NGK plugs in it, for example. So these are good enough for what I need. They weren't too expensive either. They're about £4 each, something like that, which is quite reasonable, I thought. And they still come in the AC Delco box, as you can see, 43FS. And they also come with a little grease-proof paper instruction pamphlet, which tells us, or reminds us, I should say, to check that the gap for the plug is in accordance with the vehicle's instruction handbook. So on the Allis Chalmers B, the gap between the electrode and the earth electrode and the main electrode is 35,000th of an inch. And if I check this one, that's exactly what I've got. So there we have it. We have got 3 new ignition leads, and thanks to my bad mathematics, 1 old ignition lead. But that is not cracked or broken. It's not very flexible, but it's going to do the job okay. 3 ignition lead ends soldered in, and the other one is, I've not taken it off, so that is good enough for now. We have got 4 new AC Delco plugs ready to be gapped. This one is correct at 35 thou, ready to be gapped and fitted to the engine. Now the first thing we need to do to time an Allis Chalmers B is find the timing marks on the flywheel. And on the Allis Chalmers, the spy hole is this one here, between these 2 mounting bolts here. So with underslung equipment such as this big bracket here is bolted right across the top of the spy hole. So you need to knock it out of the way to be able to view the spy hole, okay? And this has got some hammer marks on here which weren't mine, so clearly this has been done a few times over the years, okay, to knock this back out of the way so you can actually see the spy hole. If you haven't got anything slung under the engine, under the transmission, then this spy hole is clear. Now what I've done is I've turned the engine till firing on top dead center, and if you can just about see inside the hole there, see if I can focus inside for it, you can see in the hole it's got a line on the flywheel and the words, or partially the words fire, so F-I and a partly R and an E. So that is firing. However, you need to make sure that if you have got firing on here, this could mean firing on number 1 or number 4 cylinder. Okay, so you need to be double sure that you are on the correct one. Okay, and the best way to do that is to take the rocker cover off and check that your valves are both shut and on compression, and that will tell you which cylinder is actually firing, because top dead center occurs twice in 1 revolution. Okay, once on number 4 and once on number 1. Okay, and you need the firing on number 1, not number 4. That's the first thing. Now I haven't had the magneto off of this tractor, so I'm not worried about the magneto. It is in the correct place. Okay, if you were to take the magneto off, you need to verify that your firing mark here is correct on the tractor for top dead center number 1 firing by looking at the valves, and then you can then place in your magneto to the correct orientation, which if I go around the other side, you can see that the rotor arm is pointing at, when you look straight down the magneto, the rotor arm is pointing at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, something in that region. Because if you remember, when we looked at the distributor cap on the bench, this is number 1 firing lead here. And if we put that on there, it is pointing, the rotor arm, pointing up to number 1 firing lead just here. Okay. Now I've just turned the engine at 360 degrees, so 1 revolution, and if you look in the spy hole you can see that it's on firing. But the problem is that the rotor arm is pointing at cylinder number 4, because if you remember to look at the cap, this is number 4 down here opposite number 1, and even though the timing mark on the flywheel is saying it's on firing, it's actually firing on number 4. And because I haven't had the magneto off, I know that the magneto is timed correctly to the tractor. If you were to take the magneto off, you would put your firing mark on the flywheel to the spy hole, and you would turn the magneto until the magneto pointed to 1 o'clock in the afternoon, so that the rotor arm pointed upwards to number 1 cylinder. It's very, very easy to get it 180 degrees out. Okay, so if I tried this now and put this on, this tractor would not work because it would fire in all the wrong times and all the wrong places. So number 1, number 2, number 4, number 3. We're currently on number 1. We're currently on number 4. And if I turn the tractor, or turn the engine another 360 degrees, I'm just coming up now, yet again, I'm now back on firing on number 1 cylinder, and I can verify that because I have it back at number 1. So I'm happy that it's timed in the correct place. So I'm just going to go and refit the distributor cap with the gasket to the magneto. Got 3 screws. It's an aluminium body on the magneto, so you don't want to be cross-threading the screws. So make sure that they screw up nice and evenly and without any effort. 1 at a time, but don't tighten them all 3 down, or don't tighten them down singly. Make sure they're all started and then gradually tighten them up. Now this is a Lucas SR4 magneto. I don't know what the S or the R stands for, but 4 stands for 4-cylinder, of course. So you can have an SR1, SR2, etc. for stationary engines and 2 cylinders. So this is an SR4. It's a Lucas. It's made in England. Very, very prominent make. Still is today, although I don't think much of it's made in England anymore. So the brand name certainly still exists. And that is the cap on. Just going to add in the plug leads. And they've got a cap, little screw cap, just to tighten down onto the brass connector. And remember, the firing order is 1, 2, 4, 3. And there it is, all done. Just verify the leads, number 1, number 2, number 4, number 3. Plugs are all in and gapped. I'll get a new lead at a later date, and we're ready to go. So let's see if she starts. So looks like it's ready to go mowing grass. So let's have a go.